Hey everybody, John Eads here with a special guest, Reed Darcey. He's a writer for The Advocate. You've probably read his stuff before. He heavily covers the LSU women's basketball team. He'll also help out a little bit, I think, during baseball season. I saw you at the box a bit during the playoffs and deep into the season. Also a little bit of football and men's basketball here and there. And, of course, a lot of podcasting as well. And nice to have you in, Reed.
Yeah, great to be here, John. I do a little bit of everything, but women's basketball is like my main beat, so that's always a busy time of year for me.
Yeah, Reed does great work, so good that sometimes it gets on the nerves of specific coaches in this town. I'm not going to name any names, but I think that's how you know you're doing a good job. You know, you come up with some colorful phrases that are rooted in truth that, you know, might get on people's nerves at a specific time, but our job's to tell it like it is, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know it any other way, I suppose. You know, Kim Mulkey is she's a great coach to cover. She really is, because she's you can always count on her to, you know, tell you exactly what she's thinking, you know, whether that's, you know, the good thing or the bad thing, you know. So she's a good, entertaining coach to cover, and her team's always good, which makes it a lot of fun as well.
I'm sure there haven't been many press conferences, except maybe if you were on a Zoom or something, where you were like, this is kind of boring, you know, because she's always got, I feel like, intelligent, thought out answers, certainly will bring some personality and charisma, you know, and every once in a while she'll have a soapbox that she gets on. Sure.
Yeah. You can always count on her to have thoughts on something, you know, and it's good to get those moments out of her when you know she has thoughts on something and you just want to get it out and get her rolling, get her talking about something. So I'd imagine, you know, I'd love to hear what she thinks about Lane Kiffin. You know, something, if we get a chance, I'd love to talk to her about that whole situation and how the coaching search played out. I'm sure she's got thoughts, you know.
Yeah. We haven't talked to her or heard from her in a little while, right? Because the team was in the Virgin Islands and they've played like 2 or 3 games the past 2 weeks. It's kind of that part of the year, unless you're in Maui or Bahamas, you know, where you're playing a bunch of games back to back over feast week. So that's a good point. Next time she has availability. I guess at the time of this recording, they're supposed to play at Cameron Indoor tonight against Duke. I'm not sure if she'll have media availability then, but that's a pretty cool thing to do there. It's the ACC-SEC Challenge, right? And you're going to one of the most well-known basketball venues ever.
Yeah, it sure is. You know, this is really, every year LSU tries to schedule like one big kind of marquee non-conference game. Mulkey's always been the type of coach to keep it light in the non-conference so she can get a feel for her team and so her players can have confidence going into conference play. But she always has one, you know, kind of tough game against a power conference team. And this year it's on the road against Duke. They've played in the ACC-SEC Challenge each of the last 3 years. But this is the first time they're going on the road. And so they're playing in this historic venue. Duke, before the season, was a top 10 team. They were picked to win the ACC, but they have since lost 5 games. They lost to Baylor, West Virginia, South Florida, South Carolina, one other team that's slipping my mind right now. But it's not exactly the top 10 game that it could have been and that we thought it would be at the start of the season. But it's still a pretty big deal because it's really LSU's first test of the season. You know, they've played a lot of mid-majors so far. It's the first real power conference team, tournament team that they're going to be playing this year. So I think tonight we're going to learn a lot about what they look like.
I bet those Cameron Crazies, as they're called, the students there will be out too. Because when you see LSU, especially for women's basketball, you pack the house, you know. And Mulkey said it before. It's kind of like the Beatles, I think. She compared the team to the Beatles. When they travel on the road, people want to see that. You know, they're not so much there for the home team. They're more so there for the away team and to maybe see their team beat LSU, but also to see Mulkey and to see Michaela Williams and Flau'jae Johnson. Like, it's kind of crazy. We're in a time right now where these athletes, and it's not like this at every school, have become celebrities that are well known around the U.S.
They absolutely are, and it all started with that 2023 national title game with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, right? We don't need to go back through that, but that's kind of where Angel Reese kind of became a celebrity, and then the team kind of became famous on a national level around her. And so this team, if you look at it, Flau'jae is super influential in her own right because she has her music career in addition to her basketball career. And I think everything around the team kind of now revolves around her and her fame and her celebrity. You know, she's a big name in the college basketball world and just the college athletics world in general. So people want to see her play. They want to see this team. And the way this team plays between Flau'jae and Michaela and now Mylasia Fulwiley on the team, they've got quite a bit of, Showtime Lakers in them. They like to run, they like to get out in transition on the fast break, and they do really fun, entertaining things. Like if you watch the games in the U.S. Virgin Islands, like Malaysia Fulwiley was just putting on a show. There was one pass where she just threw it over her head. She wasn't even looking to a teammate behind her for a layup, and she did that against Tulane earlier in this year as well, where Michaela was on the fast break behind her and she just flipped it overhead. It's those kinds of plays that I think draw crowds, and that I think is really just fun about covering this team, because they play a fun brand of basketball, and Kim Mulkey really cultivates that. She has ever since she's been here.
It'd be cool if at the home games, while they're on offense, I know they don't do this in college, but in the NBA they do. They play music, right, when they're on offense or defense. It'd be funny if when they were on offense they would play the Harlem Globetrotters theme song when they were on offense or something. I think it would fit, because you're right. I mean, there's several different plays I can think of where they've just done some spectacular stuff. But above all, they're flying around, they're smiling, they're having fun. And then, when other teams like Charlotte, I think was the team, kind of want to talk smack or whatever, they're going to give it right back. I think this women's basketball team represents everything that people love about LSU when the team is elite.
Yeah.
A little bit of a swagger, some personality, and they play well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what Kim Mulkey wants this team to look like. Teams in general around college basketball, around sports, I think tend to take on the personalities of their coach. And that's exactly what you see with this program and what you have seen from it the last 5 years. Kim Mulkey is the type of coach she's loud and she's boisterous, and she runs up and down the sideline and pumps her fists and jumps up and yells and stomps her feet. And that energy, goes down toward the bench and then onto the court. And so the players play like that. So it becomes such a fun, entertaining product. That's something that she really cares about putting out there, because she's said this numerous times. She's like, basketball is entertaining, it's supposed to be fun. There's some structure that she has to her system, and there's some old school elements to it, but she takes those old school elements and really marries it with the new school kind of fast-paced, spaced out kind of basketball with players who can shoot threes and finish really well around the rim. So it makes for a really, not only a winning product, but I think one that fans come out to see. And you see that a lot of that, not only in their home games, but the games they go on the road like they are tonight.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was going to the football games unless maybe it was Halloween and dressing up like Brian Kelly, but
yeah.
You'll see people coming to these games, imitating Kim Mulkey, men and women. They even have a Kim Mulkey dress-alike day, I think, right? They're going to have Kids Day, I think, pretty soon. And that place, every year they do it, it's packed. I mean, there's just a lot of energy surrounding this team. And every year you expect greatness from them. Even last year, we were just talking to Don Lloyd, our sales guy here. And he said the team last year kind of seemed like it was down, like it was missing something. And they still went to an Elite Eight, which is just crazy to think about, and kind of portrays what the standard is of this program.
Yeah, I mean, it sure is. Like Kim Mulkey, you look back at her career, she's been a head coach for 25 seasons now. She's never had a team that hasn't won 20 games. So her teams are always going to be in the mix, for the national title, for the Final Four. I think the standard has been raised to the point at LSU where you can kind of expect them to be at least in the Sweet 16 as a baseline. And then from there, it's really just 2 games, 3 games to try to see if you can compete for a national title again. That's what Kim Mulkey has this program in a position to do year in and year out. She really, elevated quickly once she got here, and then she made it so that it's this sustainable kind of machine that kind of keeps rolling through all of its games like this. And so now what you're seeing, this team has 8 new players on it. It's the most they've had since Kim Mulkey's first full offseason in charge. And they look like a well-oiled machine. You wouldn't know that they have 8 newcomers, right? They're playing really well. It looks like they've been playing together for years, and they're just rolling past everybody. Yeah. And so they just rolled straight into this matchup with Duke. We're going to find out exactly kind of what they are tonight. But the first 8 games, man, like it's hard to find anything they haven't done well. They're doing everything really well.
They're naming the scores, every time you look at it. I think the other day I was just checking it out. It was Sunday amid all the crazy, Saturday or Sunday, one of the two, amid all the craziness with the Kiffin stuff. And I was like, all right, let's put up the score from the women's game. Just let people know what the score was. They played Washington State. Mm-hmm. And 112-35, I think it was the final.
Yep.
And I typed that in, and then 30 minutes later, I came back just to make sure I had the numbers right and all that. And I looked at it again. I was like, that can't be right. So I went and looked. It was 112-35. It's just crazy. It's like a varsity team playing a freshman team or something like that in high school. It's just complete mismatch.
John, that game, they went on a 44-0 run in the start in the middle of the third quarter to the end of the fourth, 44-0 run. That's what they're doing to all these teams. Before this season, the NCAA record for consecutive 100-point games was 6 games in a row. LSU broke that record on Friday when they beat Marist in the U.S. Virgin Islands. They scored their 100th. They scored their 7th straight 100-point game that night. Now they've done it 8 times. All 8 games they've played this season, 100 games and all 100 points in all of them. That's never happened before until this year. And it just goes to show like how smooth everything's been. It's probably not going to continue tonight against Duke. It's on the road. Duke's a very good defensive team, but man, it's like usually around this time of year you can find some things to like nitpick with LSU. Like maybe they get off to slow starts, maybe they have a couple turnover issues here and there in the non-conference, but like there's nothing for me to nitpick here. Like it's all good. No matter where you look, no matter what the numbers are, they lead the country in just about every offensive statistic so far.
So all of your articles have been pretty positive in nature.
I've written
really
the same.
Racking your brain like it's got to be something.
I've covered the same game 8 times, written the same article 10 different times. I'm ready for something kind of different now, something interesting now. But it's man, they've been just really impressive to start.
It is because they're not robots. They're still human. They need to walk out there, play the game. There's emotion. There's things that happen during the day. Every day is kind of different. Yet they still roll out there and put up triple digits. Like it's not easy to do that consistently. Maybe you're like, yeah, against Marist they should do that, and against Charlotte and Washington State, not exactly high caliber competition.
Yeah.
But every team kind of has that day where things just aren't clicking and the shots aren't falling and the rim shrinks. But that hasn't really seemed to happen to them yet, and that in itself has to be pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, it's hard to do this against anybody. They haven't played a tough schedule at all. Kim Mulkey would be the first one to tell you that. That's by design, right? And they won't play a ranked team in the non-conference. They won't play their first ranked opponent until January, I believe, when they play Kentucky to start the SEC play. So, again, they're not playing any competition that's anywhere close to their level, but they're doing what you kind of need to do against this level of competition. Because they're just blowing the doors off of these teams. And because they're doing that consistently night in and night out, I think that's a sign of a really good team. It's a sign of a really efficient team. It's a sign of a team that can definitely compete for a national championship. The thing that I would encourage LSU fans to do now, while they're playing all these non-conference games against mid-majors, is to compare them to themselves, right? And look back at how they've fared in non-conference play. Think about 2022, the year they won the national title. Just look back at how they did in those games and compare them to what they're doing now. And maybe you can kind of see like maybe this team is a little bit further along than those teams were at this point in the season.
Have you done that? Have you been looking?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities, I think, to 2022, 2023. That team, like I mentioned, had 9 newcomers. This one has 8. That team, they started off the season with 5 straight 100-point games. This one is already up to 8. That team did not play a ranked team until January. This team will not play a ranked team until January. But if you look at it, these numbers right now for this LSU team, all of them, at least on the offensive side, look a lot better than the team that won the national title did in 2022. So I believe that team in 2022, they scored around 98 points per game in their first 8 games. This LSU team is around 112 points a game. They're shooting at a higher rate from the field. I believe it was 53 in 2022. Now it's closer to 56, 34 from 3. Now it's around 44. They're winning by an average margin, I want to say, at 59 points now. In 2022, it was 49. And what really sticks out to me the most is the bench points. LSU is getting about 52 points a game from its bench. That leads the country. 3 years ago in 2022, it was half of that. It was around 26 points a game. Again, that's in their first 8 games. So everywhere you look, it's better. So if you compare them to themselves, things look a lot better than they did even in 2022 when things looked really, really good. And so that's not to say they're going to win the national championship like that team did, but I think it goes to show that this team is real, it's legit, and it's going to be in that mix come March.
Sure. So you think those aren't just coincidences? Like, that's real data you can look at. Obviously, there's a long way to go. We're only, a quarter of the way into the season here, thereabouts. Like, that's stuff that you can really put some stock in.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, not everything, but yeah, you can absolutely put some stock in the fact that they look this good, they're playing this good off of offense in these kinds of games. Just compare them to themselves. This is the best start I think we can say that Kim Mulkey team has had at LSU in the 5 years he's been here, and it's one of the best starts in the history of women's college basketball. So that means something. It doesn't mean everything, but it definitely means something, and I think you should give this LSU team a lot of credit for just how good they've been so far.
So 8 new players. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes you go to these games, and obviously it's early in the season. I don't know if they're going to continue to do this, but for now it's working, so I don't know why they wouldn't. They'll do like complete line changes like it's hockey.
Yeah.
They'll take all 5 out, put a new 5 in. They'll take 4 out, put 4 in. A lot of depth from what I can tell. Yeah. And there's really not a big drop-off when these players go into the game. You just kind of alluded to some of the bench production they get and the shooting and stuff. It's crazy how deep they are right now.
Yeah, that's brand new for Kim Mulkey. She's never done that since she's been at LSU. She's never been able to do that since she's been at LSU, bringing in 5 new players and swapping out the whole lineup like that. She's never done that. But the key here is the freshman class. LSU signed 4 top 35 national recruits in the signing class last year, and all of them can play in the non-conference. Like, all of them are pretty much ready to contribute to games right now. Again, we'll see if that changes once SEC play begins, but all of them are contributing right now, and I think that's a large reason why the bench production has been so good to start. And then on top of that, it's Mylesia Fulwiley coming off the bench, averaging 17, 18 points a game, whatever she's averaging. So yeah, I think the main difference between this team and the one from years past, I do think it's a lot deeper. It has a lot of depth in the backcourt. It has a lot of more depth in the front court. Kim Mulkey usually goes around 8 tops, 7 or 8 deep in SEC play. She usually brings around 3, maybe 4 players off the bench. This year, I think you could see her get to 9 or 10, which is pretty different than what she's had in the past. And I think it opens up a lot of exciting opportunities for her and this LSU team this year.
Yeah, it's crazy because as the season goes along, kind of like baseball with the bullpen, you expect the rotation to shrink, but you don't think that's going to happen? Like, you think what we're seeing now is transferable to the big games?
Yeah, it'll shrink. It'll shrink a little bit. They won't be playing 12 players every night like they are now, but in previous years, it's kind of gotten difficult for Mulkey to play 8 or 9. Now I think she's easily got 8 or 9, maybe even 10 that can be in that every night rotation. And that's quite a bit different than it has been in years past. Usually it's been the stars that kind of have to carry most of the load in even the non-conference, like in non-conference and conference play. Now everything seems a little more balanced. It seems a little more spread out. It seems like there are more players contributing to this team than there has been, at least in the last 5 years since Kim Mulkey's been here.
So you mentioned the 4 top 35 freshmen: Bella Hines, Grace Knox. Mm-hmm. Who were the other 2?
Zakiya Johnson.
Yes, okay.
And Divine Burridge.
Got it.
Divine Burridge is the point guard. I think Zakiya has probably been the most impressive so far. Zakiya Johnson, mm-hmm. She's starting, but they've all been good in their own right.
And you've got Jada Richard as well, yes, who has taken a big step, it looks like, yep, freshman to sophomore year. And, I haven't seen this movie, but they talk about Thanos and like the missing gem or something like that. I don't know what that is exactly, but I see the meme all the time and the reference. To me, it kind of feels like Mylesia Fulwiley is that. She was the missing piece that they were lacking the past couple of years, and she was a thorn in their side at South Carolina.
Yeah, I've been a little bit surprised with how smooth it's been so far for her. She's coming off the bench and playing really well. She's playing the best basketball of her career. I think Kim Mulkey the past couple of years has had a bit of trouble trying to find the right person for her point guard spot. It was kind of a struggle with Haley Van Lith a couple of years ago. Last year, it wasn't great with what they had. But this year, because Jada Richard, like you mentioned, has been pretty good, and she's taken that step forward. She can be your starting point guard, and that kind of frees Fulwiley up to just come off the bench and do what she does and lead that bench unit in scoring, get out in transition and score on the fast break and do her little crafty layups like she does. It allows her that freedom because Jada is playing so well at the start with that in that point guard spot, so again, those two are very, very important to this team. Fulwiley, she's been more efficient. She's been one of the best defensive players in the country this year. She's near the top of the country in steals. I think Kim Mulkey has been very impressed with what she's seen so far, and she's got a pretty good mix of talent. I think the pieces might fit a little bit better than they have in years past.
Yeah, Fulwiley kind of seems like a prototypical Kim Mulkey player, has some pizzazz, plays good defense, plays with some energy and has a personality about her game as well, but also isn't the type to get dumb fouls and stuff like that. It just seems like she does everything the right way. So it's no wonder that was such a big deal when they got her out of the portal and when she visited and all this stuff. Usually women's basketball transfers, you'll hear a whole lot about that, I feel like, across the country, unless you're in Columbia or Baton Rouge or some of these big, places where they got good teams. But that was huge news. Everybody was interested in that. She was at a baseball game, I think.
Yeah, it was national news, her transferring from South Carolina to LSU just because of what it did to the rivalry, of LSU and South Carolina women's basketball. For people who don't know, Mylasia Fulwiley grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. She was a hometown hero. She's one of those players that grew up a South Carolina fan, went to South Carolina, won a national championship with South Carolina. It was really supposed to be a storybook kind of ending for her, and she decides to hit the transfer portal because she just wants to, I think according to what she said, she wanted just to get out of that environment that she had grown up her whole life in, and she wanted to take on a new challenge. It seems like at South Carolina she probably would have just been doing what she's been doing the past years, coming off the bench, playing in spurts. Now she really wanted to contribute to a team and just have a larger role, and that's what she's doing so far. Her minutes are kind of been the same at what they were at South Carolina, but that's because LSU is playing all these blowouts. I think once you get into January and February, you're going to see her get on the floor more, and she's going to be asked to do different things on the court than she did at South Carolina. She'll be handling the ball. She'll be initiating the offense. She'll be asked to space the floor for Flage and Michaela, and she's shown that she can do that, hit her threes enough to be a threat like that. So I think she wanted more responsibility, and she wanted to prove that she could handle those responsibilities for the WNBA while also experiencing a new environment and trying to find a place that matches with her skill set. People were surprised that she chose LSU. It's kind of, she's going to the rival. It's kind of like a heel turn, kind of like in wrestling. But when you really think about it, she likes to play fast. She likes to play free. She really likes defending the point of attack, and that's exactly what Kim Mulkey was looking for when they were trying to find guards in the transfer portal. So when you really think about it, maybe it shouldn't have been as surprising as it felt, in the immediate of it.
Yeah, I guess it's just the craziness of going from a rival to the other rival. You just don't see that a lot. More so nowadays with the portal and instant eligibility and stuff. It's kind of like Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss. Not that they're insane. I mean, it's a rivalry. It's the Magnolia Bowl. But Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss to go to LSU, and the hope is that she can help get the Tigers over the hump, because that's been the thing, right? They've won a national championship. They've had a lot of good seasons, lots of victories, deep tournament runs, but they haven't gotten that South Carolina monkey off their back still.
They haven't beaten South Carolina, LSU as a program, since 2013, and that's a long time, and they haven't won since Kim Mulkey's here. They haven't beaten Dawn Staley in South Carolina at all. I might be getting this wrong, but I believe it's 5 straight games, since 5 or 6 that they've lost since Kim Mulkey's been here. If you ask Kim Mulkey, she'll be like, I don't care about any of that, but I think there's a part of her that she's a competitor, and you have to beat Dawn Staley at some point in the regular season. It doesn't matter for their seeding or the tournament or their hopes of winning a championship. Kim Mulkey will say that all that matters is the national championship and all that matters is the ring. But at some point it's gonna you have to I think the fans want to beat South Carolina at some point, and so there's a little bit of pressure on them for doing that. And now this year the game's in the PMAC. It's going to be fun. It's going to be nationally televised on a Saturday. Mylasia Fulwiley, the element just adds a whole new kind of excitement to it. So that one's going to be interesting. And I think if LSU wins that game, then I think LSU fans are going to start to get pretty excited about what this team can accomplish.
That's always a crazy day in town. Like I remember we'll do live coverage and fans are lining up at the door hours before the game starts. So there's an appetite for it. They want to see that. And a national championship's great, and that's the ultimate goal. But this is another thing I feel like that they want to see. And it's not something you hang a banner for, but hypothetically, it's something you hang a banner for.
When the game was here 2 years ago, they had to turn away students. Like they had to turn away fans because it just got to a point where it was so full they didn't have room for anybody. So that was the interest in it. It was crazy. I think it'll be even crazier this year because of Full Wiley and all that element there. But it's coming time for LSU to win one of these games against South Carolina because I think they have the team to do it this year.
A couple more questions for you. Thanks again for your time. But going back to our conversation with Dom we were having, he asked you, what do you think about this team? And without hesitation or anything, you said they're legit. Like they will be a team that's there deep into the season. Barring injuries or crazy. Obviously, we can't predict that, and then those things happen. You hope not. But you think this is a team that can be right there in April?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think what's different now than maybe last year was that the point guard situation is a little better. I think Jada Richard has given Mulkey what she wants out of that position. Is not exactly someone whose stats are going to jump off the page, but someone who can defend the point of attack, throw entry passes to the post, and just keep the offense moving and not turn the ball over. I think she's done a good job of that so far, and hitting her shots when the ball gets to her and it's time for her to take a shot. So she's doing a good job, and that has allowed Mylesia Full-Wiley to take that role off the bench and prop up that unit, which gives LSU a more depth and more scoring punch when Flage and Michaela have to come out the game. So those two have really worked out together. And on top of that, I think LSU likes what it has in the front court. Kate Koval, Zakiya Johnson, Amaya Joyner, the East Carolina transfer, and Grace Knox. All four of them have shown to be really good rebounders, really good defenders, and really good at finishing around the rim. So that's kind of what's really important to Kim Mulkey is rebounding and defending the rim and getting those shots in the paint around the rim. And they've all shown an ability to do that, especially Koval and Zakiya Johnson. Kate Koval, she's 6'5", she's really strong, but she's also got really soft hands and good feet. I think she's a really good fit for what Kim Mulkey wants there because she can run the floor as well as playing around the rim. And then Zakiya Johnson, I think if you go out there and you watch her play, she'll probably remind you a little bit of Anissa Morrow. She's undersized in the post, but she really is a really, really good rebounder for her size, and she's really been efficient around the rim, finishing put back layups and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really balanced team. It's got some depth to it. The pieces kind of fit really well together, and I think that's what LSU fans should look at and be excited about, trying to project them going forward in March, because this year I think not only do they have as much talent as they had last year, it's just a little more spread out, and the pieces kind of fit a little bit better together than they have in years past.
And they weren't far off last year. Elite Eight, just a couple wins away from Final Four national championship, and so the hope is this year they could take it a step further, maybe beat the Gamecocks.
Yep.
That'd be nice too. And time will tell on that. Early in the season, it's been impressive so far. The real tests are still to come, but Reed believes, and I agree with him, that this is a team that certainly can compete in the SEC and in the national picture like it does every year.
Yep.
It's like Alabama, it's like Georgia, those SEC teams in football that every year you can just pencil in floor 10-2,
Yep.
ceiling 12-0, and beyond that. So. Yep. Nobody's really talking about basketball right now because the Lane Kiffin stuff. I just want to, in closing, ask you, because you do a little bit of football, your thoughts on the Lane Kiffin hire. What do you think?
The Lane Kiffin, I think he is the best, most qualified coach that LSU could have gotten, and the fact that he wanted to come to LSU had to do it. It's the best coach out there. I think he's a good fit for the LSU program, for the LSU fans. It's an awesome hire. LSU could not have gotten a better hire, but I don't know if it's going to work out. You never know how these things will work out with these coaching hires and these coaching searches, especially at a place where LSU, where the standard is so high and you have to be in the playoff year in and year out for this thing to be considered successful. So the thing that I've been thinking about the most, I think the last 2 weeks, is just I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that he left behind a playoff team at Ole Miss to accept this job at LSU. He tried to do both. That seemed like it was never going to be a possibility. So he sacrificed quite a bit to take this job, and he brought a lot of negative attention on top of him from a national perspective by doing that. And I think this decision that he made is going to follow him for quite a long time. It's going to be something that defines his career. It's going to be his legacy, what we think of him, 15, 20 years from now, maybe when he's done coaching. Whether it works out or not at LSU here. So I think covering him is probably going to be an adventure. I'm sure you can agree with that. But it's just crazy to think about the circumstances that led LSU and that led Lane Kiffin into this situation, because it really is an unprecedented situation. We're in uncharted waters here. Nothing like this has ever happened before.
Yeah, so. Kind of like the Kelly hire. People will have a field day years from now with this whole thing, whether it works out or it doesn't work out, and hindsight will be interesting. But I think that's a good point you make. This will define his career. This is the big gamble and the big leap he's taken on himself. And he's taken them before, hasn't succeeded necessarily. So this is his big swing to prove that his past is his past, and he's a new guy, new coach, and he can succeed at a big boy job like this. Not that Ole Miss wasn't, but obviously this is a bigger job because he took it. So
he thinks it's a bigger job. That's sure.
That's why he said, I'm good on the playoff. I'm going to make it to the playoff at LSU.
Yeah,
not once, but I'm sure he hopes many times. Quite a personality. I think Mike Scarborough, he compared the hire to Kim Mulkey, not the background. Obviously, Kim Mulkey is way more accomplished, but the way they handle the media, the way they go about their business, their just overall persona, similar.
I think what they have in common is that they both inspire like strong reactions in either way. People love Kim Mulkey or they don't love Kim Mulkey so much. And I think it's the same way with Lane Kiffin. They elicit such strong reactions in people. They have such a knack for doing that. I'm not sure how they do it or why they do it, but it's just something that Lane Kiffin has always had, and he always will have, especially because he got to this fork in the road, this LSU Ole Miss fork in the road, and he chose the dark side. He chose LSU. He chose to be the villain, and that seems like a role he loves to play. It seems like he eats it up.
Yeah. But if he's your villain, you love him,
Of course.
So he was the villain for LSU before. Now he is the villain of others, but the hero of LSU. It's crazy how things can change, in one day. He's loved in Oxford, and then he's getting flipped off at the airport. He was getting flipped off in Baton Rouge, but then he gets to Baton Rouge off the plane, and people are cheering for him. It's just, it's crazy. It's like a video game, but it's in real life. It's just nuts.
Just has to win. If he wins enough to make everybody happy at LSU, then all of this kind of goes away. So that's really what it boils down to. Winning kind of cures everything. So if he wins enough, then people will love him, and none of this will really matter. So.
And if he doesn't, people will scrutinize what he does, the money he's making.
Exactly.
Everything. And we just kind of saw that movie play.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. Reed, thanks for coming in. Great analysis.
Sure.
Give him a follow on social media. What's your handle?
On Twitter, it's by Reed Darcey. BY, then Reed Darcey. That's where I'm at on Twitter.
Just like you'd see in the newspaper.
Yep.
And by the way, get a subscription to The Advocate. If you don't already, you can read Reed's excellent. You probably heard that one a million times.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent work. Wilson Alexander, Koki Riley, Scott Rabelais, probably leaving people out. I don't mean to. Jackson, TJ,
Jackson Reyes, TJ.
Whole crew. Everybody's doing a great job. I see all you guys all over the place, same place as we are, and lots of cover around here, but you guys do a great job.
Sure. Yep. So, right back at you, John. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Reed. So do all that. Give him a follow, subscribe. Thanks to Wade, our producer. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of the women's basketball season. We'll have to have you back in later on when they start to play these games that matter, and we'll do a check-in. So talk to you then.